This is a brief tutorial on stacking tables with the Fast Excel development template. You use this template sheet whenever you need to combine two or more tables of data that have comparable columns. In the world of databases, this is known as appending tables. The tables could have the same field or column headings, for example, combining forecasts from multiple regions. They could also have different values that we want to compare, such as demand, stock, and supply for the same item codes. The tables that you stack will come from other worksheets in the same workbook. They'll be imported into the query template, or they'll be the results of a previous calculation. Let's show you an example. We're going to import three tables of data. Demand is from the order book and is exploded by the bill of materials. It has a child item code, due dates, quantities, and a reference. The next table is a list of stock levels for each item code, again with dates and a reference code. The third table is open purchase orders that represent items and quantity on order. This is an expectation of incoming supply. Together, demand, stock, and supply can project total availability, and this is the table that we're going to be looking to stack. The stack template sheet has an areas in row 2 to 5 where you can enter the sheet names of the tables that you wish to stack. There's room to stack up to 4 tables here in the standard template. It is possible to stack more than this, but you should run the create names macro first, as this depends on having formulas in row 8 and headings in row 10. We'll talk a little bit more about this later in the tutorial. Each sheet name needs to go here exactly the same with no extra characters or spaces. The safest way is to double-click the sheet tab, copy the name, and paste it directly into the cell. The first row is the first row of data, not including the header. If you're stacking sheets created from the template sheets, then this is always going to be row 11. The template calculates the last row by looking at the target table and finding the last used cells right at the bottom. As you enter the sheet names, you can see that the last row is automatically calculated, and this is a guide to the size of the table and the total number of records that will be created in the new stack. We use columns F onwards to map the fields from each table onto the right column. You add more headings here and down at the bottom here. Be sure to copy this formula across to make sure we get all of the right calculations. Enter a column letter here that matches the column holding the target data. You can type in the value, or you can link to any column that has this column name marker. This formula returns the column letter and will update if you insert other columns to its left. Each of the other sheets has this formula, so we can be sure to remain resilient if we add any columns later on in the development of the tool. Let's open a couple of browser windows so we can continue to map each of the columns without having to swap from sheet to sheet. If you create a link to this cell with a column label, then the stacking tables function is going to be resilient to any changes in the source sheet structure. Generally, it is okay to insert columns and rows with this template as long as they're to the right of column E for the stack and explode tables, and below row 11 for any other sheet. We continue to map all of the fields for all of the tables until this area is completely filled out. In the Fast Excel e-learning, you learn the formula for stacking tables. This involves the indirect function, which can take the contents of a cell and make it part of a reference or another formula. It's a very useful function and has the benefit of being fast to calculate. To learn more about this, please visit our Fast Excel e-learning section. After we've filled in the columns, create names before we run the update. This creates the same set of names that you make in the query sheet: clear, formulas, results, and table. The difference is that the dynamic named ranges are now using cell D6 here to measure the total number of records, because the stack template doesn't have an import to measure against. Here we have the records counted, so we can see the results range references this cell to calculate how far we should paste down. This sheet will also support multiple paste down ranges that we saw in the query tutorial. We update, and the macro copies the formula and pastes them all the way down right to the last row. You'll see how the logic of the sheet works here with the row data. We're counting all the way from the first to the last row of the first table, and then starting on the next table. The indirect function reads the table name, the column letter, the row number to reference the right cell. So what happens if you have more than 5 tables to stack? Make sure you run the create names macro first. We can insert rows in row 5 and then right-click to move the update button out the way. You delete the create names button because the create names macro will not work on this sheet. Because we ran it before we inserted the rows, the names are still correct. However, if we were to run it again, it would still look for the formulas on row 8. You need to copy these formula down into the newly inserted rows. Then we can add new tables as we did before. The stack template is a fast and easy way to combine multiple tables together. It comes with all of the formulas preset, so all you need to do is add a few cells of data, and the tables are stacked and ready to use in the results.